Hey, what's going on, roleplayers? It's the Bard here, and welcome back to the corner. And today I want to concentrate on what it is about certain classes that motivates us to play them, and what it tells us about ourselves and about other people in their character selection. I think it says a lot about a person in what particular class they like to pick up and play. I veer very much towards Wizard first, and usually Bard. But I also enjoy Rogue, and I also enjoy a Ranger. The ones that... ooh, rare. Nice. The ones that don't really float my boat, so to speak, are other classes like Paladin, and Fighter and Barbarian aren't really to my taste either. Things like Rogue I find have a freedom that other classes don't. Things like Wizard and Bard have a freedom. I mean, look at a Ranger. A Ranger is the kind of character who can be out in the wilderness, free from the constraints of society, free from the pressures of modern life. A Rogue, although not necessarily a criminal, is in some ways, or in many ways, free from the perception of law. They would tend to favour neutrality or chaos, and are less inclined towards law. As well as wizards having the capacity to change anything and everything within their immediate vicinity with the power of their arcane abilities. There's a part of me that feels quite trapped in modern life. That there are a number of things about these sort of classes like Ranger, Rogue, Bard, Wizard, that they have this ability, this freedom. It's not a freedom of responsibility, but it is a freedom of not being confined by other people's perception of you, or not confined by other people's expectations of you, or not even being confined by the mundane of life. There is an escape. There is escape from the city where the Ranger is concerned. There is an escape from the mundane where the Wizard is concerned. There is an escape from planning and rules where the Rogue is concerned. And you know, even the Bard in and of itself is a good propensity, I think. It has a propensity towards all of those things. And I think that's why Bard is probably one of my favourite classes in current D&D. The Bard it's charismatic, which is something I would like to be. I would like to be charismatic. It is clever and it is capable. It has a arcane side to it. It has a skillful side to it. And it represents a very social creature as well. And they are all factors of a character that I would consider to be interesting. And it's something that I would like to see as myself. You know, I would like to see those qualities in myself, or I would like to enhance certain qualities of myself. I would like to have the flair that the Bard has. I would like to have the skills. I would like to have the expertise. There's a great number of things. I mean, it is a catch-all class, and I think that is partly the other reason why I'm attracted to it, because I have a very difficult time making a decision. And when I do make a solid decision, there and then, I actually do take quite quite a bit of pride in it, because it's very difficult to just be able to make a definitive. I know this to be true for a lot of people. To have a definitive yes, no, black and white, binary 1-0 answer is not an easy thing for them to get their head around. But just having an answer, having a reason, having a definitive is it just sets the world to rights, doesn't it? I might suggest an exercise to some of you, which would be to assess the character that you like to play and find out what it is about that character that captures your imagination. Is it just the fact that the character is interesting, it has a number of skills that you find appealing, or is it something deeper? Does it reveal something to you about yourself? Does it tell you who you are? Is it something you use to perceive yourself as you would like to be? I mean, at the moment, I'm playing a assassin, as you can see in front of you in this. But, normally I veer towards the wizard. Now, it's very rare that I find a game where you can really play bard, unless, you are going for a D&D game, like Neverwinter. Or it would be Neverwinter Nights, wouldn't it? Because Neverwinter is the MMO. But Neverwinter Nights was the game that was actually very much the digital version of the paper and dice game. So mostly I find myself veering towards the wizard, or sometimes the Gish, but mostly the wizard. But these days, I find myself looking towards the bard, and there are a lot of strong options in bard, at least in modern day bard. But I like the charisma of it. I like the interaction. I like the social. I think as I grow, as I age, I think the social aspect is becoming more and more great. It is a greater feeling of social, which is derived from the role-playing, as opposed to the numerics. Now, the numerics aren't bad. They're not superfluous. In fact, it is quite likely that you would take skills that reflect your character's role. I've had this debate before with certain commenters who've said, I don't like the concept of min-maxed characters, and whilst there is usually a very hazy distinction between min-maxing and just an optimization, and just generally picking up skills that help you do your job better. And a number of people have their own ideas on the subject. I mean, some people side with me and say, yes, I agree, as you progress you would naturally want to pick up skills and ideas that allow you to be more of a well-rounded character, that improves your role in the party. As you progress down whichever route you're going, you naturally would want to be the best that you can be, and that your experiences would not necessarily translate into another progression in the same class that you're in, but could indeed be a progression in a different class whereby you adapt to the world around you. And some people found that to be quite telling, and that to be very useful to them, and I'm glad that I could be of some use. I also remember having a debate because I did a video a while back that was called "How Awesome is the Monk-warlock?" and someone was not as best pleased with that. They couldn't grasp the concept of why would you be a monk looking for enlightenment and then, you know, go and sell your soul to a demon or make a pact with a some kind of patron. And I answered with simply one word, and I said Akuma. The gamers amongst you will recognize that straight away. But simply put, you know, life doesn't work out that way, does it? I mean, you can have this concept of enlightenment, but you could be on the path to it, but you may never find it. You might be trying to have some clearer clarity of life, clearer observation of your, you know, your ultimate end, where you're going, you know, in your progression. But, you know, just because you're on one path doesn't mean that the experiences of life aren't going to change your direction. I think for the character that I've just described, the monk and the warlock, you could have the best of intentions, and, you know, some of the best villains are built with the best intentions in the beginning. You know, some of the best villains that you experience have the best intentions in the beginning. And whilst every character is individual and it doesn't always work out that way, the basic premise is, you know, how often have you heard the analogy that you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain? There's a lot of there's a lot of truth in that. And, you know, you have an idea that you are a character who wants to be on a path, who wants to go a particular way. You want enlightenment. That's fine, you know, or you might want fame or glory or riches. But I would recommend that people stay on this path only as long as it is realistic in terms. And I say be open. Allow your experiences to dictate your direction. You might want to be a character who does a specific kind of thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. You may have an idea in mind that says, okay, I want to be a particular class, and I want to have this skill, and I want to have that skill. That's fine. But maybe in a game where, you know, if your DM is encouraging you to play the character as opposed to play the numbers, if he's more interested in the storytelling, then I'd say almost allow yourself the openness to be molded by the scenario. And this is very difficult to do because it's like, in real life I'm an artist, and, you know, I draw and I paint, and when I was first in college doing some higher education, my tutor at the time said, right, this is what I want you to do. Do X, Y, Z, and you know, you went ahead and did it. But it wasn't the point of the exercise. The point of the exercise was when you got to a point where you were very precious about it, to take the whole thing and change it. And I don't mean like little bits here and there. I mean drastically change the thing to be something completely different. So once you got to the point where you were very precious about what you'd created, take it, reshape it, remold it, and make it into something completely different. And it's a concept that's stuck with me for my entire life. And even though There are times when I like to have a particular character. There are ideas that flow, and I think, oh, I latch onto something and want to run with it. There are times when I think, what if I had taken this route? Or what if I choose to take this other direction? And how does that translate into a new character? How does that translate into a new sense of being? How does that become something greater? To the same argument, you could say, I have this character, and how does the experiences of the character's adventures prompt them to evaluate their life? And, I think back to this concept of monk-warlock. Whilst the monk is usually a very dedicated character who's looking for their own enlightenment, the warlock is usually someone who has bargained for power. And it says quite a bit about the mind, doesn't it? In the sense of, I was just looking at the numbers at the time, but when it comes to thinking about it, and when it came to that comment where this individual was almost disgusted, if you will, at the concept of the min-max approach, it really opened in me this idea that you can be anything you want, but at the same time your experiences will change you. They will make you a different person. And you will pick up my perceptions of life have changed enormously over the past few years. The things that I see around me have been incredibly complex in their the way that people justify behaviors or actions. I start to take much greater interest in what's going on around me in day-to-day life than I did, say, 5 years ago. I see things and I absorb ideas that they don't necessarily confirm my biases, but I am aware that I can be very biased, and everyone is. Everyone is biased in some way or another towards something or another, and that is inescapable. And anyone who claims otherwise is lying. That's the way it is. But at the same time, I am acutely aware that if I can do it, other people can do it. And because other people will do it, I know that much of what certain people say has to be taken with a pinch of salt, in the sense of they will say one thing, usually they will do another, or they will say that the world is one way, but in actuality the opposite is usually true. Up is down, black is white, all that kind of stuff. But we're getting a little bit off topic here. I think the important thing to understand is your experiences of reality change who you are as a character. They change who you are as a real person, therefore they should also change who you are as a role-playing character. And so, with my monk-warlock example, he is clearly, if anyone knows the character, he is clearly possessed, and in his mind he has transcended humanity. Whereas in the mind of another, he is the character has simply thrown their humanity away. It was a very interesting concept, and it's something that's been in the back of my mind for a while now. I thought about it quite recently, but I'd never really had the opportunity to put it into a video or to make a big point about it. More so, though, I think this is the part in the video. So this is the section which I think I've been wanting to do for a while, but didn't know how to articulate it. in how best to approach the situation. Because I do spend a lot of time doing people's characters for them. I do spend a lot of time just sharing ideas, crafting certain theories. How would I build X, Y, Z? You know, I do like doing it. It's fun. But at the same time, you know, we all have to understand that your experience changes you. Experience will change you, and experience will it will give you insights into things that you did not or had not previously thought of before. So, you know, I don't see a monk-warlock as just a collection of min-maxing, even though you know, you could realistically argue, okay, the monk probably gets the most attacks for the smallest investment, and then the warlock gives a lot of power for, you know, for the variation of the slots that it has for its spells or whatever. I mean, yeah, but some people are like that. Some people do want the quick and easy path, so to speak. Some people want the ability to have power, and I think that is the lure, isn't it? That is the lure of evil, the lure of power that, you know, attracts people to certain routes. I mean, you would like to think that you would not be tempted or corrupted by power, by things that are in your mind. You think, oh, you know, from a outside perspective, from having that almost godlike overview of your character and their behaviors, you would like to think that you would not succumb to those temptations. But in real life, those temptations of having something better or having something quicker or easier, they're very real, and you do find yourself wanting. It's when you're reading, you know, when you read a book or you watch a film, you know that it's wrong, you know, and you know that you would, well, you say to yourself, I would not do that. I would never do that. Or if I was in that position, I would walk away. But, you know, if you were in that position, if it was you, if it was objective and real, you know, would you take the easy way out? It's likely you would. And this is, I think it's, like I say, I think it's very telling in the character you know, that you're playing. What I think I would like the takeaway to be here is to remain fluid in your perceptions. That if you have the opportunity to play a game that is about exploration, about personal discovery, about understanding the character, and you know, you know that you don't have to worry about your scores so much, or your abilities, or how proficient you are, or anything like that, then I would say remain open, and be open to the concept of taking classes that don't necessarily blend well. I mean, the game is 5th edition as a game works very well in the sense that most things can blend together in such a way that they will still work to a degree, that you won't have a completely useless character. But, you know, I say, now that you have that option, now that you have the capacity to have a character which has sometimes wildly different classes from each other, but can still work, I say you should embrace it and really take advantage of it, because there are going to be many times where, you know, you really want to see where your character goes. And there's something that I've really wanted to do for a long time, but haven't really had the opportunity to do it, and that is to take a character, build it from level 1, and see where the where the story takes his progression or her progression, depending on whatever mood I'm in. You know. I would like, because I've read, I can't remember where I read it now. It was a long time ago, but someone had built a character who was a mage, and they'd been rescued by a cleric, and rather than taking another level of mage, they decided to take a level of cleric to represent their devotion, their new perception of life. That this cleric had helped them, rescued them, made them into another, you know, made them see the light, as it were. And you know, they took this level of cleric for their character. Didn't suit it, didn't really help the progression any, but it did, you know, represent that person's direction, and it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. I thought that's an amazing concept. It's just so hard to do because it's very difficult to get out of the mindset of a character who performs a function. And I think it's worse for us in this modern day where we are forced, you know, we're bombarded by demands to do better, to try harder, to have more value for money, if you will. Does that make sense? You know, people say, you know, you have to try harder, you have to be working more, you know, you have to be exceeding expectations, and you know, and the best way to do that in a physical sense, in say D&D, would be to continue down the progression that you're on, and then get better spells, better abilities, and that kind of thing. And whilst, you know, multi-classing can offer some good abilities, single classing can offer some good abilities. Ultimately, whatever way you look at it, you know, whichever way you slice it, there are going to be penalties, and there are going to be bonuses. There are, you know, you where you get stronger in one area, you will not necessarily improve in another. But isn't that real life? You know, isn't that the cost of taking a certain direction in life? Is that not exactly the whole point? You know, do we not, you know, do you not take your life in a particular route and say, I wish to study this? I mean, I enjoy music a lot, you know, and I would love, I have guitars and I have a keyboard, and I would love to sit there and learn. But I'm very much aware that the more time I spend doing music, the more my art would suffer. And I have to understand the fact that if I want to be good at one thing, then at some point something has to give. I mean, I work, I do my role-playing, I have this YouTube channel, I like my art, I have to give time to my family, I have to give time to my friends. I have other work-related projects that have demand my attention, and you know, everyone only has a finite amount of time, and in order for one thing to be good, you do have to make certain sacrifices, and it's quite sad, you know, it is, that you can't do the things that you would like to do. In the sense of in order for your other skills that you want to be particularly good at to flourish, then another skill in your life has to wither and die. And that is a sad thought. You know, you can't make yourself do everything. So you can't physically do everything. You can't have it all. You can't have your cake and eat it. you would very much like to have all these skills. I would love to be, you know, a rock god in my own house. You know, belting out awesome guitar riffs and, you know, being the bard, as it were. truly to be the bard or minstrel. But, you know, I have to be honest, you know, I can't spend the time learning it, because if I do spend all my time on that, then, you know, every time I'm plucking a string, I'm not making a brushstroke.
I am overburdened.
Yeah, I think that's probably a very good way of looking at it. Every time you pluck a string, you're not making a brushstroke.